Cybernation Uncensored.
And we're live. What's up, gatos? This is your friendly Cybersmily with my co-host.
This is Wisdom Greetings Programs. It is good to be back.
Please let us know if the audio is bad. I know last episode I came in pretty silent. Hopefully I fixed it. I'm still learning OBS and making sure to check all the levels before we get started. So hopefully you guys hear us loud and clear.
That is the desire.
So I guess we can first start off with some news. So from my end, I actually pushed out a update to my site on the character generator for Cyberpunk 2020. I added contacts. So you can now, as a fixer, start doing your contacts, as well as allowing some people to just put in generic contacts if you want to start capturing those. I also fixed a couple bugs. I got some more bug fixes that I need to do. And also still working on the Cyberpunk Red character sheet, because that's just taking my time with and making sure everything's looking good and working good. Other than that, from news-wise, I think one of the things in the media, because I don't think our Talsorian dropped anything within the past 2 weeks that I'm aware of.
Not that I've seen.
Yeah. But in other news, apparently William Gibson's The Peripheral is being made into a miniseries on Amazon. And that's supposed to be coming out in October, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, the reviews for, or the trailer for it looks really good. Much better than I would have imagined, to be honest. They have struggled a lot with bringing Gibson to screen, and it's always been weird to me that it's such a struggle. But yeah. We haven't had a new Gibson on the screen since New Rose Hotel, which was okay.
Yeah, and it was kind of a blip, really. Even though it had Willem Dafoe and Christopher Walken, I mean, two heavy hitters.
It wasn't promoted anywhere. The only reason I knew the film existed is because we rented videos at the gas station I worked at, and it came in, and I was like, oh, what the hell is this?
Yep, and then you had also Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah.
Definitely would love to see Neuromancer, but I think the problem with that is one of those things when a company buys into a property, they have X amount of time before they have to do something with it, or they lose the license, and then someone else comes along and buys a license for X amount of time and basically gets locked out. So I don't know if that's what's happening with Neuromancers. It's just constantly being trying to be developed, but the people who are doing the development just never really do anything with it. But the other thing I saw on IMDb is that they're going to be doing pattern recognition in that series, so I don't know how far they've gotten with that, but that was a great series.
Yeah, I'm far more familiar with that than I am with Peripherals. It would be nice to see that. I'm not sure how they're going to do pattern recognition, but I'm looking forward to it.
So that would be a nice little add to it. I haven't heard too much else when it comes to Cyberpunk movies and things of that, but we're going to get into the latest drop, as it were, which I think is
we're going to get
to all of us.
Waiting for. I would like to say that I've been struck by a creativity bug. I've been working on stuff for the site. Nothing's ready to be done yet, but that espionage source book I've been talking about for a while has now gotten so large that I had to break it up into 3 separate projects.
Nice.
And so I'm having to go back and rewrite what I did on that, but it's going to be a much more streamlined thing. So, and maybe I'll be able to put out all 3 at once. I'm also working on concurrently, because all the ideas are hitting me at once. I'm also working on another district guide. It's obviously not going to be as big as Marston in the combat zone, but it's something that I used directly in my game, so hopefully I can get some stuff done.
Yeah, I got to do a write-up on some of the districts I've used for you to add to the site.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who wants to throw some stuff in that they've written for whatever districts I've created for my Cyberpunk district map. If anybody out there has some stuff that they want to see added to the non-official official stuff, Datafortress stuff, send it my way.
Yep. Also, I think Dark Horse still has some of the Blackout. I don't know if Blackout 3 is available yet.
It is.
August
I haven't chance to pick it up yet, but it is available.
Then there's also I Give You My Word. Or You Have My Word.
Yeah.
Which I
haven't seen that yet.
It's on pre-order. That's the one I'm waiting for.
It's just also like Dark Horse is solid. I don't know. The idea that there are Cyberpunk comic books and their quality coming out is as much of a dream come true for me as the anime, to be honest. Like with the first little miniseries, I was like, okay, well that's probably all we'll ever get, so it's awesome. But they keep putting books out, and it makes my little anime loving heart and comic book loving heart go pitter patter.
Yeah, so
it makes boom diddy boom diddy boom diddy boom diddy boom diddy boom diddy doom boom boom.
And I haven't seen any new Cyberpunk coming out yet, or at least comics. But definitely would like to see them continue on with the whole series.
Yeah, I mean the anime just the anime just brought in a ton of new people. So, and it's brought the game numbers back up to what they were when it first released. It's insane how many people are jumping on the property now.
Yeah, and I think with Edgerunners, it just put a big injection into the whole thing, because Cyberpunk 2077 became the #1 seller on Steam again, which is a good sign. People are digging the site, and I think with that you're going to get a lot more tabletop players as well coming into it.
Yeah, it all kind of explodes outwards.
Yeah.
Fandom may be the only instance out there where the trickle-down theory actually kind of works.
Yeah. Now if we only can get our hands on Black Chrome, definitely would be good to strike when the iron's hot.
Yeah, it'll we're all crossing our fingers on that one. I mean, Tales has done fairly well from what I can understand, so Tales of the Red. Chat guys, I love Johnny Mnemonic. You'll never hear me talk shit about it. I think it was good from start to finish. It was entertaining. Was it a cinematic masterpiece? No, but it was good, solid fun.
Yeah, and also think about how Hollywood treated sci-fi in that age.
Yeah.
Around that time, you had like Judge Dredd with Stallone. You had very campy movies, and
Yeah, almost all sci-fi in the late '90s or early '90s had to be like an action sci-fi thing because of the popularity of like Aliens.
yeah. So sci-fi as a genre, it was very hard to get something good like Blade Runner. Like Blade Runner was a masterpiece, and I chalk it up to that age of directors that were coming to that out, and how cinema was just doing experiments, like even Aliens, and then it turned into Hollywood turning into business, and like, okay, here's how we're going to make it look, here's how it's going to work, this is how it's, and not thinking about the finer details.
Like they were starting to lay down formulas. And like, all right, well, this is committees decided, this made this movie a success, so do some of that. So the '90s were like a test bed of that philosophy, and unfortunately, Neuromancer fell into that, or not Neuromancer, Johnny Mnemonic. But we still got a solid film. I
did.
I don't understand people who dislike the movie.
Yep. Did Mike think his game was ever going to be this big? Maybe.
No.
Probably not.
I mean, I'm sure he wished it was. I mean, Mike was a huge anime fan. Mike was a huge comic book fan. That stuff is evident when you read any of the material.
I think Mike would have liked Mechton to be bigger than Cyberpunk.
Sure, probably. That was his original baby. Well, besides Teenagers from Outer Space, but like Mechton was I think his true love for gaming. But Cyberpunk was the one that captured everybody's imagination.
Yep.
But even then, I mean, I think the two novels, The Ravagers and Hollow Men, I think that kind of soured Artel Sorian on any kind of on stretching the game beyond out into other branches of media. They just were so poorly received that kind of, I think it might have killed interest for them.
I think third edition also probably
hit
them as well.
It was a long, hard road.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in the 90s talking with my friends about what a cyberpunk anime would look like, or what, a video game based on it, because that Shadowrun game came out and was super popular, and Shadowrun had the budget for all this stuff going on the side. So yeah, it's a dream come true. Like, Cyberpunk might have come first, but it always was like the plucky underdog. It was the original, but it didn't have, magic in it and all that. It just, like, somehow Shadowrun took off huge, and I don't know.
I've said this before. Like, I have a gamer friend. If it doesn't have elves or some type of fantasy element in the game, he will not play it. And he plays Shadowrun, but he won't play Cyberpunk. Yeah.
And if the rules like differ too much from Dungeons and Dragons and hit points and all that, it's hard to get a lot of old school gamers interested in a complex system like Cyberpunk 2020. Not that, past iterations of Dungeons and Dragons haven't been complex, but it's a different feel, and people who come from a D&D background have a hard time grasping it.
Yeah, I think I've seen this posted, and a lot of new players and new GMs who come into Cyberpunk, they get that. And again, this is just us rambling. We'll eventually get to our review of Edgerunners, but
yeah, we know you're waiting for it. We're gonna hit it.
we usually ramble for first half hour. But so a lot of D&D players, right? It is built for, you can do, real RPG, role playing, and really, it depends, of course, on the GM. You can do that, or you can do the basic hack and slash and just murder hobo through. Cyberpunk, if you try to murder hobo through it, you're not going to last long, especially if your referee has any skill in how to deal with Cyberpunk, because Cyberpunk is about consequences, is about beating down the players, and no offense, but I know some people are like, well, you want to promote the players. Like, Cyberpunk is all about, the world is doo-doo, and it's taking a big ass dump right on your heads.
I don't know if I fully subscribe to all that, but yeah, it's a hard life. It's not going to go easy for your players, no matter how much you.
And I've said this before. It's like every game or every situation has a certain game system that you should use, right? Like for me, Cyberpunk is about the gritty role playing, the kind of depth that you can get into with players not going to know everything a DM should know, and you can build upon secret within Cyberpunk, versus D&D, which to me is like, yep, I can throw a bunch of goblins at you, I can throw a bunch of trolls, I can do, and basically just throw monsters at you, and you just grind through them. And that's why I would use that system. Now, if I want something wacky and crazy and deadly, I would use Paranoia, right? Because that game is just fun and wacky and crazy. So there's definitely a lot of game systems out there, and for those who kind of stay within the box of D&D, that's a shame, because there's great other systems out there, and how you run them shouldn't be like D&D, and it shouldn't be anything close to D&D when you pick it up. So yeah, I've played a couple of Monster of the Week, and that's pretty fun. It's a nice, quick, easy system to learn, and quick to just do a quick session and not even care about it. Got any other comments that we should talk about before we get into our main subject?
I don't have anything else per se. I'll probably think about something in a rant in the middle of whatever we're talking about during our review, but I think we're good to go.
All right, so let's get into it. So
we've certainly attracted a number of people today that is unprecedented for us.
Yes, and I appreciate all you listeners, and I hope you enjoy our rambles and our discussions about Cyberpunk and just the craziness that is Cyberpunk from us two old farts.
Yeah, old farts.
So tonight we're talking about Edgerunners.
Yes, we are. We are talking about Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the anime, based on the video game, based on our favorite gaming franchise.
So we weren't sure how we were going to structure our review, whether we were going to dive into each character first, or the episodes, or an overview. So we're just going to kind of play it by ear on how we want to approach it. I don't know if we want to just give our quick overview, or a quick couple sentence what we think of it, and then get into the specifics.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan to me.
All right. You want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. My quick review, my my quick couple of sentences. I recommend this anime. I think the characters are interesting. I think they're well performed. I like the story. The animation style, it works. I would have preferred, like, I might have preferred a little more. I don't know. Without getting into specifics, which I will definitely get into later. I would prefer a little darker animation style. But yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it. Anyone who is a fan of anime will probably enjoy it. Anyone who is a fan of the cyberpunk genre will enjoy it. And anybody who is a fan of Cyberpunk 2020 or Cyberpunk Red will get tickled pink. If you're a fan of 2077, you're going to be happy. Yeah. In my little quick snippet, I'm not going to say anything negative. So yeah, that's just pure positiveness right there.
Yeah. Also, a word of warning: spoilers. So just so you guys know, we're probably going to give you some spoilers on when we start getting into it.
Spoiler alert! And now, don't get that wrong. What I said, I will definitely be talking about the pros and cons of the anime. But for a quick snippet review, I recommend it.
For my quick snippet review, it definitely grabs a very, at least to me, a Cyberpunk 2020 vibe, especially with the story and the various arcs and how it plays out. There's definitely a lot of scenes in there that I've used in my own games. Not necessarily exactly, but definitely close. And some of those characters, I'm like, yeah, I had that person in my game. Yeah, that person did exactly that in my game. Or or a game I was in. So, to me, it just captured the whole cyberpunk. The other thing, which is, of course, based on the video game, it definitely added to the background of the video game. And it's great to, like, be or see a familiar city. Like, yep, I know exactly where they are right now, and yeah, they're gonna encounter some Valentinos shortly, or they're in Maelstrom territory. But yeah, it to me, it definitely has that look and feel, and I think from an overview, in my opinion, at least from a cyberpunk player and both the video game and the tabletop game, I think it's definitely a cherry on top to this whole evolution of cyberpunk. I mean, it took us 30 years plus to get to this point. Plus. And for me, it has been worth the wait. Because, back in the 90s, definitely would love to have seen a movie, definitely would have loved to see better novels.
A 90s style animation.
Yep.
For Cyberpunk would have been the dream come true.
I mean, and like back in the 90s, you also had, and even in the 80s, you had a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons try to do their cartoon. BattleTech was another big game at the time that had a cartoon and tried to do some development work, and in the novels of both those systems, as well as a lot of other games, the writing of those novels was a lot better than I think what Al Tarsorian was able to acquire. It would have been nice to see them push it a little more to get into that avenue, because I think that's where you would have gotten a lot more creativity. And again,
it always bothered me that we didn't get more on the expanded media front.
Hey, I understand the BattleTech cartoon was not that great, but it was something. Right?
Grumpy old man.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get back on track on Edgerunners. Edgerunners definitely is a thumbs up, triple thumbs up. If I had a third arm, worthy of watching. Even to the point where the reviews are Rotten Tomato gave it 100%, and overview of like 97%. IMDb has an 8.6 score on it. So it's not only us Cyberpunk fans who are like, yes, this is 100%. It's a lot of other people out there. And, well, apparently it is. So you might not think it is 100, but some people do. I think it's 100, but then again, I'm watching it through rosy glasses. Rose-tinted glasses, I think is the term.
Yeah. No, we're Cyberpunk players. That shit is chrome-tinted. You know better than that. What are you talking about?
Chrome-tinted, yes. So should we get into the specifics? I mean, do we want to go characters first and then maybe get into the episodes?
Well, I mean, we already talked about it, but the first glimpse of the first real glimpse we saw of what the anime was going to be came in that. Of course, we'd seen trailers and teasers, but with that last 1.6 update for 2077, there's an Easter egg you can find in the game that shows you the first 5 minutes of the anime. You get to see the Cyber Psycho attack. So right away we knew that violence was going to be glorious. That's the word I choose.
And I know you have some comments about that particular scene, because for me, when it definitely captured the violence of Cyberpunk, but then when the cops started opening up on the Borg, or sort of the Cyber Psycho, and just not doing anything, that is ultimately 2020, because you will encounter that most of the times as people ramp up their SP, they're going to be almost invincible. And I liked how that was reflected.
Yeah, I mean, the opening, the same scene serves as the opening to the anime. Not the opening credit scene, but just like that's how the anime starts. It was beautiful. Like the animation was top quality. The violence was top quality. I'm going to come back to this a couple of times. For me, the action was a little over the top. It was a little... I would have preferred more grounded. I would have preferred more realistic take on, what the cybernetics do and all that. I would have preferred 2020 to 2077, but that's it. I get that they were trying to emulate the video game, and the video game lets you get away with some crazy stuff. But yeah, there are a couple of scenes in the anime that I just think they took it a little over the top. I would prefer it to be more grounded. Like when the cops are shooting him, and like there's just no reaction from it at all. I get that he's fully cybered out. I get that. I get what they're going for. But then he turns around and starts shooting cops at point blank, and they're not reacting to it, and they're definitely not full conversion. They're just got SWAT armor on. So I would have preferred a little bit more grounding. Like, even if they're just standing there taking it, like at least showing the impact of these bullets that have been ripping cops apart. I would have preferred that a little bit. It was still beautiful. I still liked it. I still got hyper about it. But that was my take.
Right. But again, I love how, for me, they showed like the absurdity that Cyberpunk 2020 can get to, right? In which, no matter what, your handgun's going to do absolutely nothing to somebody who's, layered upon layered with armor. and the weaponry is just, ridiculous. Now, granted, they don't have any API or API or AP and API and DP and all that other fun stuff. But overall, I enjoyed that first scene. Also, if any of you are listening, hopefully you were able to see the first 3 episodes with Rob and Cyber Nation Uncensored. Because that was, to me, that was great. Because I was going to wait until my... So, when I originally saw this, I actually had my in-player group come over to do the screening, because it was that night that I was supposed to have, or we were supposed to have a game. So it was nice to have all my players in a room watching this. Granted, I've watched through the series again with my wife independently, and also watched the stuff from Cyber Nation Uncensored. So I still enjoy watching it over and over so far. We'll see how long it lasts, but so far I've been enjoying it. So let's get into characters. So the main characters are David and Lucy, of course. You also have Maine, Dario, Kiwi, Pilar, Rebecca, Falco as the kind of core group. David, of course, is the main... Is he the main protagonist? Well, he dies at the end, but yeah. He is the main protagonist.
Don't spoil it, right off the bat. I mean, come on.
I said there was going to be spoilers. If people haven't seen it, then...
Jumping ahead on us. David Martinez is definitely the protagonist. The whole show revolves around him. It doesn't really focus on anybody else except in small snippets, so... I don't think there's really any argument for it being about anybody else. Yeah. It's told from his narrative. I like him as a character. I like all the characters. Like, there was no... It's weird because Trigger does not have in my opinion, does not have the best track record for their shows and putting out shows that don't in some way have characters that just annoy the crap out of me. I'll just be that blunt about it. There were no characters in this show that annoyed me at all. I was really worried from watching the trailers that the character of Rebecca was going to annoy the crap out of me. She did not. It was a very pleasant surprise. I enjoyed every single one of them. Yeah. We'll get into individually. I'll say David's not my favorite character. I really liked the character of Maine, and I really liked Lucy. I thought they were just more interesting.
Yep.
What was Maine's girlfriend's name? Is that Pilar?
That was Dario.
Dario, yeah, sorry. I really wanted to see more of her and their relationship. Like that, I wouldn't have minded like an episode based around that, but that's me.
Yeah. All the characters to me definitely reflected Cyberpunk. Again, I think my hands down favorite was Rebecca, because I've seen Rebecca in many of my games. I've seen I can't argue with that. Bits and pieces of other characters in my games, but Rebecca is definitely someone I've seen.
All the other characters are characters that players want to play, but somehow Rebecca is the character you get.
Yeah. To me, the best, the scene that cemented her was when David had to go to Rebecca's and Pilar's apartment, and she just answers the door and shoves that gun right in his face. I'm like, yep,
Yeah,
I know that character
like
well. And she continues to have a civil conversations with him as he's still pointing the gun at his head. It's like, oh, hey, David, how you doing?
that's how you greet telemarketers.
But yeah, to me, she was, and again, the thing with her was CDPR's guys who wrote the story didn't write her in. She was not one of their characters, and Studio Trigger's the people who put her in, and CDPR people are like, I don't know if we want her in there. Thank God.
Yeah, you want her CDPR.
Yeah. So I'm glad Trigger, and again, so if you saw the preview of the 3 episodes, CDPR people were basically talking about, well, the writers and the developers and the producer of Edgerunner talked about the whole presentation and how they worked together and the stories they made, and how CDPR people kind of like wrote a bunch of different disjointed stories and gave it to Trigger, and Trigger was like, yeah, we're gonna turn this into what an anime should be.
Yeah. Like, they took a bunch of side stories that got scrapped, and we're all like, here you go.
Yes.
This goes to show you can find gold in other people's garbage.
So.
And I think Becca is definitely like the fan favorite of the whole show. Like, she has exploded in popularity.
Yes. But yeah, I agree. I would have liked to seen a little more character development of Dario. Pilar was, spoilers, ended very quickly. His character path.
I very much want to learn more about him. With Dario, like, she definitely gives off like an animal, like the animal booster gang vibe. Like, she's a big muscle bound chick, and for that matter, so did Maine, kind of. Let's just take it character by character. Well, let's start with David. David has a really interesting backstory for me. I very much like his character arc. Like, he just starts off as this schmuck high school kid who goes on to be a badass edge runner.
Yep. Yeah, I liked his arc too. I mean, is he 16, 17, 18? I don't know his age. I assume 16-ish, 17-ish, which kind of puts into, the minimum that Cyberpunk 2020 would have rolled up with.
I think somewhere they say he's 17. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure somewhere they say he's 17.
But yeah, you can see like the life path of the characters, and what they rolled, right? Family.
You can just like family. You're like, oh. I've seen somebody drop that die roll right there.
Family's in jeopardy. Lose both parents.
Corporate upbringing.
Yeah. Even with Lucy, it was a bit like that. But yeah, I think David was a great character, and it showed he was kind of likable, which means you could see. And again, I'm viewing it through like a Cyberpunk tabletop game. He definitely had a high empathy, so he could resist cybernetics a lot more than other people, as it were. I like his quirkiness, and he was kind of more pushed to do something than actually be kind of a dick, like was it Katsu? That was the Katsuo, the corporate brat, right? and kind of that humbleness of somebody, of basically a hero character, right?
Yeah.
And it played through the whole series. Even when you get into the whole decline of him delving into cyberpsychosis. Spoiler!
Obviously, the amount of cyber he gets, he's got a high empathy. I would have preferred if at the beginning, like, they don't really illustrate his high empathy in terms of how he's relating to other people. He starts off kind of introverted, and maybe that's the point. Maybe that's why he's different. Maybe he's
Well, I mean, if you think about like a people person, somebody who cares about people in a society where it's just violence and decay and all this other crap happening in the world, would a high empathy person retract themselves? But then again, he's watching brain dances of a cyber psycho and thinking, shit, man, this is great. I love this crap. Give me more.
It's yeah. I mean, I see what they're going for. It's just weird that a character with that ridiculously high of empathy is shown from the very beginning to be kind of introverted and standoffish from everybody. Although it's easy to see why, as his high school life is hell.
Yeah.
Getting picked on by the rich corporate snots while he's there on like a scholarship. Yeah, I tell you what, the rich corporate snot Katsuo, who constantly gives him shit, they throw in a Fist of the North Star reference that's pretty epic.
But I like how when he first beats up David, it's like, oh, don't you have the +2 martial arts chip?
Yeah. And then he proceeds to throw out the 100 crack fists to the North Star.
Yeah.
Complete with... I mean, it's nice. It was a good reference. They played off the skill chip fairly well. It later turns around to bite him in the ass when David actually gets his... All right, here's my complaint number one. I guess number two, because I talked about the over-the-top of the opening. Complaint number one, the way they pronounce Sandevistan. They pronounce it Sandevistan, and it kicks me in the head every time I hear it. Like, it's just so fucking weird hearing it said like that. I've been playing this game for 30 years. I've never heard anybody pronounce it that way in my life. I'm assuming that they probably talked to Mike, and maybe that is how it's supposed to be pronounced, but it just sounds wrong to me. It's like when I watched Dune, and the new Dune movie, and instead of Harkonnen, it was Harkonnen, and it just dropped me out of it every time.
Tomato.
Yeah. It's a personal gripe. I understand that it's purely personal and has no bearing on anything other than just old man yells at clouds. But there you go.
But yeah, I like their David as a character. I think his arc was definitely fully completed at the end of the series. And
there was no real.
And at the end, yep, I sure that makes complete sense. It wasn't from a story point of view, it made perfect sense and it was very acceptable. It was sad, but especially after fighting Adam Smasher in 2077 and knowing what a pussy he is.
I mean, let's I'm not going to spoil the ending yet. We may get to that at the end as we progress through the review. But yeah, I agree. The story arc was complete. It doesn't leave a whole lot of room for questions about David, at least important ones.
Yeah. So I
I
guess
liked David's mic, I gotta say.
Gloria.
I liked the character. I liked Gloria. I liked it when you find out the truth about Gloria and who she really was.
Yeah, I liked that little tidbit that she was just a EMT, just scraping by, harvesting cybernetics on the side.
Yeah. It was a good little side story. Like, that's a good character concept, is an EMT who does in fact illegally harvest cybernetics and implants from victims of violence, better than letting them go to waste and then selling them on the black market. Like, that's a good character concept. I like that. I could see that happening completely.
Yep. And of course, she definitely played I would say, atypical role of a mother who's trying to do good for her child, and is willing to go above and beyond her means to provide. And of course, the kid not realizing exactly, not understanding or appreciating, what she's gone through to provide.
Well, I mean, she actively hides it from it, so we can forget that.
So next character, I guess, would be Lucy.
I love Lucy. I think she's got just the right amount of tragedy to explain her personal attitudes, while also explaining her own optimism in the game. Like, she's a fairly complex character, and I appreciated that. Doesn't hurt that she's smoking hot, but yeah.
I like just the various situations that, especially in episodes 2 through 3, in which she kind of befriends David, but not really. Like when he passes out from using the Sandafissa too much, and he falls unconscious, and they're in the ambulance. And again, perfect example of EMTs are like, yeah, we're going to harvest your shit because it's worth money. And the EMT's like, yeah, you're getting harvested, David. And she's like, oh, well, David, so much for you.
Yeah. I liked the escape from the ambulance. I thought that was a good little action scene.
Yes.
Like, Lucy is portrayed as like the best netrunner on the team, although really, I think Kiwi is shown to be a better netrunner in my opinion. Certainly more diverse in her realm of specialty.
Yep.
But yeah, Lucy is shown to be like an attack dog in the net, as it were. She's very aggressive when it comes to her role as a netrunner. And she's very aloof and like nonchalant to anything that happens around her. For the like first half of the anime, even with people that it's obvious she cares about them, but she maintains an air of distance, and I dug that. I dug her character growth. I liked that. As the series progresses, she both draws further back from the group, while herself becoming more empathetic and human, as it were.
Yeah. And for me, with Lucy, was the beginning. She kind of was. She manipulated David in the beginning. You're not quite sure if during that time when she was doing that manipulation, was she really like taking a shine to him, especially after she brought him to Maine, and Maine was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna rip rip that cyber out of you." And she's sitting off, just smoking a cigarette. Yep, do what you want, just don't kill him because you said you weren't going to kill him.
Yeah.
And then forcing her to kind of like bring him into the fold and train him, and starting to develop that closer relationship, which I think she was kind of very standoffish, probably because of her background of how she grew up. And spoilers, she was growing up in a corporate farm and and made to do some bad stuff and watch what corporations
Some pretty
do for people.
ridiculously dangerous shit. I mean, her background is not a pleasant one at all.
Yeah. So, and I liked how she developed as a character throughout, and even when, where it got to the point where she kind of stayed away from the team, and David basically started becoming a cyber psycho, in that whole situation where, David's like, let me in, and she's like, I can't, I have shit I need to complete before I can do that. And that whole dynamic, I think it was in episode 8, right, in which that whole friction of hey, maybe we should break up, kind of brought conflict to the characters, right, of her and David. And you're like, oh, because you buy into that whole relationship. And of course, as people, we want to see the best outcome, and just seeing that friction, and you're like, oh God, what's going to happen next? And of course, I won't put any spoilers right now, but the relationship continues for at least a couple more episodes. But yeah, I liked how their characters reacted and worked together.
Yeah, I mean, there's definite relationship conflict there. David thinks that she's being really selfish and she's just trying to distance himself from her, when it's in reality the complete opposite. She's really trying to save his life, and getting extremely frustrated at how difficult that prospect is turning into.
And also trying to clear up her loose ends. I mean, I've definitely had my own characters in my campaigns try to do that, right? In which they're like, hey, party, I just got some shit I got to take care of, because either I'm hunted for by a corporation, or some other crap in my past is creeping up. Because me as a referee, life path is the fodder for conflict.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's your
address those things.
For any kind of campaign idea, like, what are we going to do this week? I don't know. Maybe I'll throw down a life path rule and see what happens.
Yep.
And you can see how people's life paths roles play out for them. I like that each of the characters in the anime specialize. Like, there's. You've got your net runners, you've got your solos, you've got your fixers, and there's not a lot of it's very that was the most 2020 part of it for me, is all the roles that everybody plays in the anime are very easily identifiable and very recognizable from 2020.
Yep.
In 2077, everybody's kind of a jack of all trades, especially the player's character. Like, V is definitely he can go any direction he wants, and often does multiple at the same time, like Netrunner, Solo, Nomad. I like that in this anime, those roles were clearly delineated and really expertly portrayed. I mean, like I said, that's a solo, that's a nomad, that's a fixer, that's a corporate. And they give us zenith examples of those.
Yep. Yeah, and And one of the things that really kind of shined a light on this was when Lucy and Kiwi were talking. And it was like, yeah, Lucy was like, I shouldn't be with this group anymore. There's one too many Netrunners.
Yeah.
Which is usually true with the tabletop role-playing games. Unless you're playing an all-Netrunner group, then, that works too. So let's move on to Maine. Mr.
Maine
Solo
is
Elite.
I mean, he is a badass solo. That's as true as that gets. He's your big tough bruiser who starts off pretty, he starts off very professional. He's a veteran. He's the guy you want watching your back at all times. The Maine is badass, and his descent into cyberpsychosis, I like the way that's portrayed. The eye thing is a bit weird, but I get that it's anime, and that's just representative of, his descent into losing his grip on what's going on around him. I like his relationships with all the characters. I like that he's kind of like a father figure to the whole group, especially Lucy and Rebecca. Kiwi and Dario look at him as equals, which is also cool. And of course, David comes in, and he's the father figure that David's been looking for pretty much his whole life.
Yep. Yes.
I will say about him, he has really weird taste in firearms. He picks like the most ineffective bullshit. Just from my personal standpoint, I didn't care for. Having played Cyberpunk 2077, like I never use the guns he uses. So.
What, Crusher?
I mean, I love the Crusher. No, it's that the multi-shot weird shit. I forget what it's called.
Is it the Novatech?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Sure. Yeah, I thought Maine was number one, a little too cartoony when it came to his cyberware. But overall, he definitely portrayed a well-rounded solo who's been on the street, team leader, knows his way around, not necessarily telling the whole team what's going on and what deals he's making. So I thought he was definitely a great character when it came to, especially his mentoring of David. The other thing I liked was it episode 6, Girl on Fire, with his descent into madness. Spoiler, when he grabs Kiwi for not doing what she wanted or what he wanted done, and he just gives her a freaking smack in the head. And then he's like, who? What? What happened to Kiwi? Who did this?
Yeah, that's definitely the portent of doom right there. Main cybernetics, they didn't really seem as cartoonish to me as like David's when he activates his Sandevistan. I mean, that's another complaint I have is David, like Sandevistan doesn't work that way. It doesn't turn you into the Flash. You're not moving at the speed of light. And I've talked to, I got a comment from Jay Gray about that subject, and he was all like, well, it's a prototype, and I get that for the anime, and I get that for the video game. It just was a little too over the top for me.
Yeah. Yeah. But for me, when I say cartoonish, I'm like, when he puts his hand next to David, and David's hand's like a quarter of the size. That's a little cartoonish.
Yeah, you're definitely getting some anime. Like this is an anime specific trope. He's the Hulk in he's the cybernetic equivalent of the Hulk. He's just humongous.
But overall, I loved him, and I think, how they treated him throughout the series. Would have liked to have seen him last another episode or two, but completely understand the whole diving into the madness and just losing your sense.
I mean, really, I can say that about all the characters. I like 10 episodes. That seemed really short. I think they could have stretched it out to 15 and given an episode or like split an episode with backstory for all the characters. I would have really enjoyed that. But that comes kind of back to the nature of the role playing game and both 2020 and Red, where most people run like fairly short campaigns, so you don't get the character background that you would really like to do. You don't like the characters. You never see them reach their full potential, and that, I kind of like the fact that the anime portrays that.
Yep.
Yep.
Shall we move on to Dario?
I think that's the logical step. She is Main's input, or yeah, and I like
she
Dario.
Is solo?
She a solo? She kind of comes across to me as like a solo techie mix. You never see her really do much on the techie front, but she's definitely got a solo background. Like you get the feeling that she's been serving. At some point, there was some military service with Maine, or maybe like a mercenary service before they formed the group. Like you get the feeling that she's been with him the longest. She's definitely a veteran too of some kind. So yeah, I think there's a lot of solo in her backstory. She's the only one that's kind of hard to really nail down because she doesn't get the moments to shine the other characters do.
Yeah. And it just seems like she's kind of also the medic, and I wasn't sure if they were trying to like play a bit of a med tech role with her or not. But yeah, I mean, I would like to have seen her fleshed out a little more, especially if she was Main's main squeeze, as it were.
I was going to make that same joke, and I was like, no, that's good. Yeah, I would, yeah. Main squeeze.
But yeah, I would have liked to have seen. Well, again, I think they only did 10 episodes. I think they could have done like 12 and snuck 2 episodes to do a little more character building before shit hit the fan, as it were. But yeah, again, we can't really view her much other than would have liked to see more of that character. Next character I think would be Kiwi. Or do you have any more to say about Daria?
Just that everybody's characters, like it's pure cyberpunk in the fact that there is just tragedy abounds. Like you want to see happy endings for these characters, but they know that they're not going to have happy endings. They know the nature of their lifestyle. But it still hits hard when it hits.
Yeah. And that whole scene of when Dario and Maine kind of leave the series, it was great to see the delusions of Maine and what he saw and what he was trying to do, at least for Dario.
I like the way they illustrate cyberpsychosis in the game. It works for me.
Yes.
Or in the anime. Like the slow descent into madness. And what's causing it. Like that's one of the subjects I think in the anime they tackle really, really well.
Yep.
But yeah, we can move on to Kiwi. Kiwi is Kiwi is a pretty complex character. She embodies the ethos you see in a lot of people coming into Cyberpunk, where she's a character you can never be quite sure if you can trust her or not, and ultimately you find out you can't trust her, and she warned you about it. Don't trust anybody. Like that's her tagline is don't trust anybody, and she lives up to that lifestyle without throwing out any specific spoilers. She lives up to that lifestyle.
Yes. But yeah, just a little bit, and she really didn't get too much screen time until like later in the series, and trying to work out that character. But yeah, I kind of liked her as a character, and I've known players like that, and they got the same ending.
I mean, that's how it happens.
Yeah,
if you're not trustworthy in Cyberpunk, you if the other players can't trust you, there's the support goes out the window.
What do you mean the Fixer or corporate does that? But I did exactly what they wanted. Loose ends, buddy. Loose ends.
Loose ends.
Got to tie those up. Yeah, I think she was a good supporting character. I think in the story,
her netrunner abilities. I mean, obviously Lucy is a netrunner, Kiwi is a netrunner, but they approach their professions in vastly different ways. Like I said, Lucy is your infiltration specialist. Like she'll go in and she'll hack some shit and she'll get to the deep information. Kiwi is more like an offensive netrunner. She like takes over drones and like just Kiwi's badass.
Yeah, Kiwi's a criminal.
Yeah,
through and through.
And a smooth one. Kiwi, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Kiwi?
But yeah, she was definitely a great Cyberpunk character, as it were. Like I said, I've seen a few players like that in the game, and I've run plenty of NPCs who are like that. So I guess we move on to the twins, as it were, or the family, the brother and sister of Pilar and Rebecca. You want to do Pilar first? Because I think he'll be quick.
Let's do Pilar first because, well, Pilar is an interesting character. He's the first time you see somebody in the game whose cybernetics, like he's got these big elongated arms. You don't really see that anywhere in the video game, but you definitely come across that kind of stuff in the tabletop game, like people with like oversized limbs,
double jointed.
Double jointed, weird body modifications, and he's like both of the twins are kind of nutty. He's a more grounded nutty, like he's just the kind of guy who's off in the corner, like giggling to himself. And I've played with many a player in many a different genre who, like, he perfectly personifies.
I don't think he is as stable as the other members of the group.
No.
I mean,
ultimately,
he's not like Rebecca, but he's definitely not like any of the others.
Like, Rebecca's a nutbag. She's violence incarnate, but like she actually holds it together. Where Pilar, he's always on the verge of just completely going nutsy Fagin on you. Yeah.
And of course, the only reason why you knew he was a techie was because not necessarily that the writers showed you he was a techie, but they said he's a techie, right? Because of his hands. It's like, oh, here are the techie hands, or I don't want those hands; they're techie hands. And it's like,
yeah, I mean, it shows him working on stuff in the background, but it doesn't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen him make a little bit bigger of a deal out of it, but I think he's the one who's customizing everybody's weapons and things like that. You see a lot of very unique customization on the main characters that I think he's probably responsible for, at least in the beginning of the series.
Yeah.
Um,
Before we go to Rebecca, I need to take a quick 5-minute break. I know,
all right, you take a
audience,
quick 5 minutes, and I'm going to keep ranting.
you can keep ranting, and I will be back. Apologies.
Things happen. While he is off doing his thing for a moment, let's see. Anybody got any? Looking at the chat. Yeah, Aaron Duran. I kind of agree with you on all those points. I do think Marin, Dario, and Rebecca were all solos. I think Pilar was a tech. Kiwi and Lucy were obviously netrunners. I agree that Falco was a nomad. He is definitely the driver of the group, and like he shows some affinity for the nomad lifestyle. Faraday was a pretty awesome fixer. I'll say that. Like he was a really good portrayal of that. Let's see. I like. I'm probably going to talk about this more in depth when he get afterwards. But I think my absolute favorite thing about the anime is every single scene, every single location they visit is someplace you can go in the game. I think that's amazing. Like I've never seen that level of faithfulness and detail put into any kind of adaptation of anything. Like every single place they go is someplace you can visit in the game, and it's instantly recognizable as such. If you've played the game, especially if you've beaten it, you can just be like down to like the alleyways. Like I've been in that alleyway. I know where that is. That's over here off of it's like a block away from Arasaka Tower, or that's it's without giving too much away. It's pretty amazing. It almost makes me wish I'd watched the anime before playing the game. That way, when I come across those spots, I could have tied them into the anime. But it was still an immense thrill recognizing every single location they go to.
I'm back.
Yeah, and Lucy's apartment does look just like Judy's. Like she's in the same building. Like you actually pass Judy's door on the way to Lucy's.
I had one of my friends when we were watching that said the same thing, but you're wrong, because if you look through the window, they're actually in Japantown, looking down the canal towards the rockets.
You may be right about that. You may be right. I do know that when they're on the rooftop, that is absolutely.
But they're hanging out in her apartment in the window, and you see the rockets launch. So yes, it looks the same, but I actually went into the game trying to figure out exactly which building it is. Doing some parkour and figuring out, okay, looking at that scene and trying to replicate, okay, the billboard's over here, this is there, and it is definitely within Japantown, and it's in the building, one of the buildings, or the apartment buildings next to the Mega Building 8, where Clouds is.
I mean, straight up, the apartment he shares with his mom, is the exact same layout as your apartment in
Yep.
in H4. Yeah. It's not it's not the same mega complex, but they're all kind of laid out the same. So yeah, you share the floor plan. But that was a weird 5-minute digression while you were doing your thing.
Sorry, I just
let's move. No,
coming off a cold and my throat is kind of scratchy, so I just need a little bit of liquid to continue to talk if I'm going to talk at any time, any length of time. All right, so to the main character. To discuss
Rebecca,
the best character,
and she's fan favorite for a reason. She is. She's not really representative of any of the NPCs you come across. She's this really short. In the previews, I was worried that she was going to be like an underage type character, and I guess she still is. She's like 17. She's the same age as David, maybe 16 when the anime starts. But she doesn't come across as annoying. She doesn't come across as cringy. I was worried she was either going to be like just an obnoxious younger freaking like sidekick kind of character, or she was going to be like this weird lolly fucking like cringy in that regard. She didn't come across as either. She came across as a pretty well-rounded
other term you like to use, Daisy Sue.
Mary Sue? No, I wasn't worried she was going to be Mary Sue. Like that was never really a fear I had with her, because she actually seemed more. She was just a well-rounded character. Everybody likes Rebecca. It's hard not to. She's just a little ball of violence and violence and joy. Like, she's genuinely in a good mood most of the time, and she kind of gets mad when other people aren't.
And I think she gets sane when she needs to be sane, which is usually revolves around trying to bring David back to reality.
Yeah, I honestly think her craziness is her. That's her coping mechanism for what's actually going on. Like, it honestly comes across as kind of an act, because she'll be this crazy ultra violent character, but then she'll turn around and be surprisingly empathetic. She's the heart and soul of the team, and she keeps everybody else together, really.
Yes.
And the only cringy at all is like her first introduction. That's the only time that I'm all like, ew.
Well, she's let in a bar, so obviously she's.
Yeah, I mean, they let her in a bar, but then again, they don't let her into. They don't want to let her into Afterlife either. True. So I don't know. Now that could be because they're looking at her and like, no way you're coming in here. And it's the world of Cyberpunk. You can look like what you want to look like. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And short people need love too. But yeah, I didn't care for, like, later in the series she gets these giant oversized arms. I think that's like in tribute to her brother. I didn't really care for him just because I don't like her fingers wouldn't fit in the trigger guards. That just wouldn't work.
Oh, and when she got her implants?
When she got her
the red and blue. Yeah,
they're just these giant freaking hands that, like I said, the fingers wouldn't fit in the trigger guards. Pet peeve of mine. Just one of those things that I'm the only one who's ever going to be concerned about that shit.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, with the release of Cyberpunk 2077, and you can get her shotgun and the kick that shotgun has, and she's like just using it without any problems. Like, I have a character who's 20 strength and I'm constantly being thrown back with that thing, and she had a problem shooting a crusher first.
Yeah, and then she gets the giant mega arms. Something that's not a problem, but it definitely goes to show just how how good of a techie her brother was, because that shotgun is just guts. If you haven't come across guts in the video game and you've kind of been, look up the tutorial for how to get it online, because otherwise you're just never going to notice it. Like, it's not in any place that would be obvious. But it exists in the video game now. You can get it, and it's totally worth it.
Yeah. There's a few other secrets I'm trying to figure out, like with Lucy's apartment. I'm like, all right, maybe they have some fun little thing that no one's found yet, and everyone's going to Judy's apartment thinking it's there, and the reality is, no, it's one of these buildings. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out which it is.
You can get into that, like, it's just so awesome that you can how the closeness to detail they put, like how you can recognize all the players. You can go into the weird, like, shitty hotel that they visit, like, it's there. But yeah, it hurts me. I don't want to spoil Rebecca's arc. I don't.
Yeah.
I will say that it hit me. It hit me right in the soul. Like, she's badass, and she deserved better.
Yes. Agreed.
You know, I say that, but really, like, that's kind of the best, most epic way you can resolve your characters.
No, it was too quick. She should have put up a better fight. There should have been other ways of doing it. If you want me, I will spoil the shit out of this and tell you exactly how it should have gone.
I mean, I would have liked to. I would have liked more. I love the character enough that. Yeah. No, I'm not going to spoil anything. I can't bring myself to.
All right. So I'm going to spoil it. Let's just say, all right, how about this? Only 2 characters survive the whole series. And
yeah, that's the way to put that.
Lucy was not Rebecca was not one of them. So
no.
How?
Like I said, she goes out in glory. Like,
she did go out in glory, but I would have liked to have seen a little more glory. I think what should have happened was a tuck and roll. She continued to unload the gun as he's approaching her, and he's like, you know, deflecting, and he comes over to her, and she just, you know, empties the whole gun, and it's just click, 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 and he just grabs her, and she gives one last statement of like, or he gives like some snarky statement, because that's who his character is, and she just like gives him another snarky statement and like pulls out a grenade and tries to take out both of them. He would, of course, survive, but she would have sacrificed her. I think that would have been a better ending.
I don't know. Like I said, I think she went out. The whole game comes across as like something you would see run in like a 5-session arc or something like that, and she goes out. She goes out like a hero, and that's really the best you can hope for. And it's sudden, and it's tragic, and it works. It hits you, like I said, it hits you right in the soul.
It does, but it's just too quick, and I think she could have put in a lasting epitaph to her ending. of some other comment back to him. But
Sure.
again, I'm not the writer. They did it, and that's the way it was, and it still works in the story. Yeah, hands 9. There's only one happy ending for one of the characters, which it's not so much.
I don't-
It's not necessarily a
tragic.
happy. Yeah, it is tragic, but again,
they just don't. That's
spoiler.
That's the ending is they survive.
Spoiler: Lucy survives. Her ending is a bittersweet happiness. Let's just say, because I think she does
It's
have a little bit of happiness. Well, again, you're living into a cyberpunk world, and I think Lucy got the happiest ending that she could get.
All right. Who do you want to do next?
Falco is the last of the team.
Yeah. I mean, Falco's a nomad. He's the team's driver. Anytime they need, somebody behind the wheel, he's the one they call. He's also the most stable of the whole group. Like he doesn't have the cybernetics everybody else does. He's just this badass driver.
And he doesn't come in until quite late in the series, so it's very hard for him to build in as a character.
Yeah,
because he comes in after I think episode 7 when
here's
David
the
becomes
deal.
the leader.
You can just see. I wouldn't say episode 6, but yeah. You can just see, like, the character who played Pilar, or the player who played Pilar, he's all like, oh, fuck, I gotta roll up a new character. All right, he's my nomad.
Yeah, I could see that. All right, we'll Rick you in.
Yeah, and they do, and it's glorious. He survives as well. I'm just going to throw that out there because, I mean, if we're spoiling shit, we might as well spoil shit. Like, if you haven't watched the anime by now, don't be listening to this podcast because we're talking about it in depth. I you know me and my love for nomads, so my love for Falco is right up there.
So it's interesting with Falco. As soon as I heard him talking, I'm like, holy shit, that's Matt Mercer. And if any of you don't know who Matt Mercer is, he is part of Critical Role. You might love him, you might hate him. I followed Critical Role back when they first started on, Jesus Christ, Geek and Sundry. So I kind of have been a bit of a fan of his. And know his voice. However, the one thing I didn't like was that he just kept the same voice that he used for what's that video game by Blizzard? It's a PvP. Not League.
You lost me.
Yeah, well. So there's a video game in which he plays this character called McCree, in which he's a Western kind of Clint Eastwood. Overwatch, yes. He plays a Clint Eastwood-looking six-shooter kind of guy. Southern drawl and all that. I wish he did a different accent, but again, it fits within the universe. Yeah, he got typecast as McCree forever. And he does so many other character voices so well, and like, if you watch Critical Role, he definitely has a range that should be exploited, in my opinion. Now, I'm going off on a tangent on this, so those people who don't know Critical Role, shame. The first season I liked. Second season, yeah, it was more of the same of the first season. Haven't even watched the third season because of me falling apart on the second season. Anyways, hundreds of hours to watch. You don't necessarily have to watch it. But basically, Critical Role is a bunch of voice actors who play Dungeons and Dragons. They live stream it. One of the players, Liam, Christ, I forget his last name. I don't want to say Liam Neeson, though that comes right into my freaking head. But the actor's name is Liam. I gotta look it up.
Gallagher?
No, it's not Gallagher. It's all right. I gotta watch it. I
don't do Critical Roles. So
yeah, I know. Liam, what is his name? Critical Role, Liam O'Brien. There we go. So the reason why I bring up Liam O'Brien's name is because during when I started watching Critical Role, Liam O'Brien, and again, I was following these people on various social media. Liam O'Brien put out a picture of Cyberpunk 2020 main book, all ratty and definitely played with. And he's like, I still got mine. And I was like,
that's fucking beautiful.
You're in my team, buddy. If you've been around role playing and you played this game, you're in my book as a good character. And that's why when I heard Matt Mercer's voice, I'm like, I'm sure Liam O'Brien should have been involved with this anime, because if you look at the actors or the voice actors of this anime, they all have tons of anime gameplay credits. All of them are just top-notch voice actors. From what I can see, is they've done tons of them. And the other thing is, I'm just amazed at how much work they do within a year.
I'm never surprised to hear that voice actors are into role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, because it just seems like such a perfect way to hone that craft.
Oh, it is. And you see a lot of that, especially with live plays, that you definitely can tell the amateurs versus the professionals when it comes to things like that, because they've had the improv experience to always stay in character during a scene and continue that for God knows how long, and not like us amateurs who will be like, oh yeah, roll the die. Oh, hey guys, did you see this movie over the weekend? No, I haven't seen that, but I don't care if you spoil it. What was it? Was it good? Was it bad? And you start going off into bullshit. I think the game you run, Derek, is a little notorious for us sidetracking on life events and other shit. But that's gaming,
that's the
right?
point of it.
Yeah,
that's
of a gaming group. And so to be spot on and always keep that going is definitely, you definitely can tell professionals from the amateurs. But Rob's stuff, definitely professional. He keeps it on track and doesn't spoil. So definitely go check out Cybernation stuff, because they do keep it on track and don't.
Yeah, they do a lot of live plays that are really tight.
So, anyways, that's when Falco came up. That's why I was like, oh man, I'm surprised they didn't get Liam, who I know is a Cyberpunk fan. So,
yeah, Falco, sadly he gets about as much character development as Pilar did.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have definitely seen more.
He's a player who doesn't say a lot, and the GM constantly has to ask him, "Okay, what do you do?"
Yeah, like the GM forgot my turn in initiative again because I'm just sitting over here minding my own. Again, it comes across as a pretty faithful representation of what a role playing game is like. There was one more character he's in the group, but just kind of off on the sides.
The Ripper
you can tell
Faraday.
Faraday. The Ripper Doc is his own. The Ripper Doc is definitely an NPC, whereas Faraday comes across like an NPC that the GM's got set aside in case an extra player joins the group.
Well, first off, talk about the Ripper Doc and his intro. That first scene when you meet him,
he's fucking nuts. Like
he's just like, oh,
fucking.
So that's what they do in 2077 for self pleasure.
Oh, dude, and you see it like a couple of times on a couple of different background NPC. There's just this can over their groin that does its thing while they're in brain dance, and you're just looking at it like, Jesus, put a blanket over yourself or something, dude. I don't want to.
As soon as that came on the first time, which I think was David walking by one of them, one of my players was like, "Oh my."
Yeah, it's. That is. I could have lived without that part.
They didn't have that in the computer game, though.
Yeah, you don't run across that with all the cringy shit that's going on in the video game, and there's a lot of cringy shit.
But you find a lot of dildos in the video game.
Yeah, and luckily they toned that down. I remember when I first played it, like launch day.
Christ!
I was like, "Oh my God, they're just fucking everywhere!" I'm like dong.
It's not one use, is it?
I guess they're just disposable. And you can't use. They're not like weapons or anything. They're just floppy dongs just everywhere.
Yeah.
So glad cut that back. It was hard to take. But yeah, I what's the doc's name?
I think Douglas.
I liked him. His attitude was your typical Ripper Doc, like, sure, I'll put this in you, and when it fucks up, I get to take it back out and keep it, right? That's the deal we're gonna make.
But to him, he seemed very cybered up, so God only knows what his humanity was.
It's low. It's like he's not cyber psychosis low, but he's not all there.
Reminds me of the first character I ever created for Cyberpunk. I rolled a 3 on my empathy.
Ooh.
And I played a med tech. So the other group was asking me, "Oh, please save me, please save me." I'm like, I guess so.
Hearts. Let's see. This spleen will go for $300 on the black market. Yeah, I'll save you, buddy. Don't you worry. You're in good hands. Get the ice chest ready. I honestly found Faraday to be a more interesting character. He gets you get zero character development on him, but I liked Faraday. I like fixers.
Again,
he definitely comes across as like a sleazy fixer. Like, I wouldn't trust that motherfucker. I wouldn't work for him. But desperate Edgerunners, they get jobs where they can.
Yep. And Faraday, I think, was the biggest name on the list. Giancarlo Esposito.
Carlo Esposito. Yeah, his voice is instantly recognizable. I love the dude. I do. I enjoy seeing him in everything. Like I really. He was just in that Netflix Resident Evil show, and I really liked that show. I'm not a fan of the video game, but I liked the show. I liked recognizing all the bits of lore that were popping around, and I just really like Giancarlo. I think he's a great actor.
I think he's a great actor. The one thing that got to me with his voice in the anime, and it's kind of a cliche with anime. If you ever watch, like, I don't know, there's some people who kind of spoof anime. You have that. Sure. Oh, so I'm going to go and do this. Yes, what do you this?
A little bit over the top. Like, I mean, it's not. He's done a lot of voice acting, so I don't know. I trust him.
I trust him, but his voice had that anime cliche to it, which
I mean, it's studio
a bit distracting. And I get it. I know that's his voice, and that's what the voice he used, and that's where they went. It's just my personal thing was very. It seemed too cliche.
Be more Giancarlo, more yourself.
Well, if you actually listen to his normal voice, he doesn't sound anything like the characters he played in Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad or The Mandalorian. You know, his voice is very different.
His normal voice is very normal. Yeah, it's distinctive, but not the over-the-top sinister that he's portraying in the show. I get you.
But yeah, as a fixer, he definitely played a very good fixer. When he first came on my screen, my wife, when she was watching it, she's like, "Wait, what the hell's up with his eyes?" I'm like, "Oh, he has 3 eyes." She's like, "I can't watch him. I can't. That's too disturbing." I'm like, what? 3 eyes? She's like, it's just too weird for her to watch.
The 3 eye, I could deal with the 3 eye thing, except that they were too close together, and that's. At first, I figured, well, that's just some specialized cybernetics, but kind of at the end, you see his eyes rolling around independently, and they're just like normal eyes, and that like shit like that irks me when like 3 normal eyes don't sit that close together. You couldn't make them sit that close together, and still have eyelids. I mean, it just.
Yep.
Again, a little bit over the top. I like my shit grounded with at least some nod towards reality, even in a fictional setting. I'd prefer it grounded. That's me.
Yes. Yeah, but overall, as a villain, as a villain fixer, which it's a hard trope to pull off in Cyberpunk nowadays. The double-crossing fixer. Because one of the problems, especially in the tabletop game, is, players need to trust certain fixers, and players need to not trust certain fixers. And how do you portray that, right? Because as soon as you double-cross a group with an NPC fixer, they're going to then, all fixers are going to try to double-cross us. And it's very hard to play that card again.
I mean, looking at it realistically, like a successful fixer, he's not going to betray his group, because then he'll never get work again. Like, word travels fast in the Edgerunner community. Like, if this fixer over here is untrustworthy, if everybody he sends out ends up dead, no, we're not going to work for him no matter what job he's offering.
Yep.
So that trope and that attitude always kind of bugged me. It worked well for him. It's kind of the stereotype of fixers now at this point, so it worked. Plus, if you've got Esposito in your thing, you might as well make full use of him, and he's quintessential Esposito.
Yep. Other NPCs or other characters would have been Tanaka, who was the Arasaka guy who, and that was a great tie-in, right? In that, you know, you had a player background. Oh, I have an enemy, Katsuo, whose father, Tanaka, is what the group is actually trying to hunt for.
Yeah.
Whether or not they did that on purpose, but now I'm looking at like this anime. I'm like, holy shit! I can create like a script based off of.
You can roll on your life like that. Just that's how it works. Whoa! Well, what can he throw at you? Well, his dad is like a major executive at Arasaka. You're fucked, buddy.
But when I saw that, I was like realizing, oh, the whole life path, you can actually generate a whole script based on that and the interconnections that things work. I mean, Edgerunners definitely a
was just created from rolls on a life path. Like that's honestly kind of how it feels.
yeah, and we're starting to get close to our normal time, which is around 2 hours. So we got about 15 minutes. So I guess we're not going to go to a breakdown of every episode. But I think we kind of covered quite a few episodes as we talk about each character. But from a tabletop point of view, you know, this series, as I constantly watch it and actually talking with you, is like I'm seeing how much it's great in that it's not only teaching you how to create a story based off of the game, but also how to create, you know, a campaign based off of the game, or whether it's a quick campaign or something else, in which you can have your own story. Yes, the details of you know, okay, Arasaka's coming after them for, you know, hey, I want to try this product or whatever. You can always insert. Who is it? There's I think the guy's name is Guy. How to Be a Great GM. What he always introduces the banana, right? So the banana is kind of a weird concept of the prototype, right? The product, I think, is what Arasaka called it within this series. So, like, David is good for the product, or is a good candidate for the products, right? So David is good for the banana, whatever the banana is, right? You just use it as a placeholder. And then you can say, you know, the corporation can be any corporation on what they're trying to test, whether it's Biotechnica or Militech or some other corporation. You just use that as kind of insert this here, and you can change the Edgerunners series into a different campaign. Yes, you're borrowing similar themes with it, but the likelihood that a player might see those things, especially if you're talking in terms of a different corporation name, a different banana, as it were, or something, you know, adding in those different elements when you name them. Players, majority of players are not going to make that connection immediately, but as you play and you start portraying a lot of what Edgerunners does, of the different situations and different scenarios, players are going to recall that, but not necessarily always think, oh, we're playing Edgerunners, you know, that whole plot. Especially if you change the names and you change the objectives. And that's another reason why I love Edgerunners as a show, is it encompasses, especially from a tabletop point of view, the game, the Cyberpunk game.
It really does.
Because I know we have 10 minutes, so I'm trying to wrap it up real
I
quick.
think we're gonna go for it. I don't think there's because I've still got a lot to say.
By all means, start saying it.
All right. I'm just going to paraphrase. Like, immediately after I finished Edgerunners, I posted like a spoiler-free review on Facebook, just talking about the pros and cons of the show. So I think I'm just going to paraphrase from that. First off, I'm gonna go with the pros. We've been playing Cyberpunk for 30 years, over 30 years now. To finally see that property as an anime, it was crazy enough seeing it as a video game, but that was always in the realm of possibility. Shadowrun got video games, D&D's had dozens, Warhammer's got video games. So while it was like an outside chance and kind of came completely out of nowhere, since Cyberpunk had been all but dead for years, the video game was a fantastic surprise, but it was always within the realm of possibilities for me. To get a full-fledged anime, especially a top-notch one like this, it's a fever dream. Like, I would have never in a million years thought that it would be realistic. And it did, and it's badass. So 30 years of dreams come true. Everything in the anime, from the locations that we've talked about to all the guns that are used, or at least all the types of guns, the vehicles, the tech, most of the cyber, not all of it, but it's all stuff you can get in the game. It's all places you can go. It's all things you can see. So you can live in the exact world that's portrayed in the cartoon, and that's fucking badass. Like I said, I've never seen that level of detail and faithfulness come out of any adaptation to anything ever. I like the plot. I like the story. I think the characters are all like tip top. Like, they're really well done. The plot's not too complicated. It's not very subtle, but it's solid. Those are my words. It doesn't dumb itself down. It doesn't cater to children, which is good because it's a very adult-oriented anime. Not in a cringy way, just in a, like, this is lots of violence, and some, complicated themes. The violence is fantastic. It's very reminiscent of anime from the 80s and 90s. I could have used a little bit more violence, but I always can. I don't necessarily... I'm not a huge fan of Studio Trigger, but the animation in this was top notch. It's all smooth. The character movements, they're not stiff. They're not. It's top quality animation, even if it's not in a style that I would typically be a fan of. This is without a doubt Studio Trigger's best work, like head and tails above anything else they've ever done.
Yeah, let me just interject a little bit on that. I definitely saw different anime styles in various cutscenes.
Yeah.
Which you just saw as oh, that's really comic book stylish, or especially after the explosion, the pyre, as it were, and just seeing David's character through that, and that's and again it goes back to the main core of animation, but just those little snippets of different art, different concepts were just fabulous. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was all the positive things I had to say that we hadn't covered yet. I'm going to round this out with negatives, just because I'm a good news first kind of guy. Some of the cybernetics designs are a little bit overdone. Like I said, Faraday's eyes, they bug me. Some of the implanted weapons you see, there would be no room for that in the cyber arm. That always bugs me. It's like when you see a image of Wolverine and he's got like 3 feet long claws, and you're just like, that shit has to fit in his forearm. That wouldn't work. I'm anal about that kind of thing. The action scenes, particularly in the first episode and the last 2 episodes, they're too over the top for me. Like, I would have preferred them to be more grounded. I would have preferred more Bubblegum Crisis or standalone complex style action as opposed to like Super Crooks action, which is what we got in those episodes.
The last couple episodes were kind of over the top with that. And again, like
cars bouncing like 50 feet in the air for no reason.
Like with the car jumped the rail and was about to hit that AV. I'm like, and this was when we were doing my view party with my players. I'm like, yeah, that car's going to land safely and everyone's going to be secure because that's how Cyberpunk 2077 does it.
Yeah, that's how the game works. And I get that they were being faithful to the anime. I get that. I can even appreciate that. But I would have preferred more grounded in physics. That's just personal. Like, that's actually a problem I have with the game. So, meh. The effects they give for some of the cybernetics in the show, like I said, like the cyber limbs with weapon options in them, they bug me. The way they portray David Sandevistan, oh, I can't even say it like that. The way they portray how that works, that bugs me. I get, like, I've talked to Jay Gray about it. I get that it's supposed to be a prototype thing and it's unique and all that, but like, they show what the Sandevistan is, and it's just a spinal implant. In the game, it's just a neural implant. It's not a spinal anything.
Yeah.
We're in the tabletop game.
Yeah, just a quick sidetrack on that. And speaking on that measure, right? So it is a plug-in to your neural processor.
Yeah.
Because when you read it in 2020, because I had that concept of when people were, when my group was like looting the bodies, right? Because they wanted, I'm not going to cut up the fucking body or drag this body with me because I got limited amount of time before I got to get the hell out of here, before more guards come or cops come. And they're like, according to this, it's just a chip, right? Or a plug-in that I can rip out of them.
Like in the tabletop game, you go first in initiative. That's how that works. Like, that's all it does for you. It boosts your initiative. But in the anime, man, and even in the game to some extent, it turns you into the Flash. Like, he's running from one side of a complex to another in the blink of an eye before anybody can even like move an inch. And it comes across as really fucking goofy and impossible to me. Like, even as a spinal implant, like, it doesn't replace his legs, it doesn't replace his inner organs, it doesn't do any of that. It just was a personal pet peeve. It's very anime, it's very video game, and I think that comes across as the problem for me. So yeah, that bugged me. The action is over the top. I would have preferred more grounded. I would have preferred more faithful to 2020, but I get that they were being faithful to 2077, and this was supposed to be this super unique thing. I get all that. I didn't care for it. like I said earlier, the action scenes are brutal and violent, and I love that. But they show scenes of people getting shot with automatic fire, and just not reacting to it at all. Like bullets are just bouncing off of them, even the soft fleshy parts, or the soft armor bits. That bugs me. I would have liked. I get that. I get skin weave. I get subdermal armor. I get hard armor. But for them to just stand there perfectly still and bullets just bouncing off of them, man, it doesn't work. Like, just show them at least like, twitching with the bullet hits. Like, physics, people, physics.
Again, you address that in your IU, right? in Raw of 2020, it's yeah, you could get to that point.
I mean, it's very much Red. It's very much the video game where you can just it's hit points as opposed to wounds. It's a pet peeve of mine. I don't when bullets hit and there's just nothing. It's just a petite. It like skin weave is still fleshy. It's still malleable. And you see that it's malleable. Like you see when they move. There's blah. Yeah. The only other problem I have is, like I said, they pronounce Sandevistan weird. Every time they say Sandevistan, it's like a kick in the teeth. Like, don't do that. That's really all the negative I have to say about the show. I like the show. I recommend it. I will watch it again. It's one of the better cyberpunk genre animes out there. If I had to place it among others, it's not as fantastic to me as, say, like it's not Bubblegum Crisis. It's not Akira. It's not
Ghost in the Shell.
It's not Cowboy Bebop or Ghost in the Shell. But it comes after those. Like it's
well,
yeah. I would say after those 5, it's number 6.
And again, it for me, it grasps Pondsmith's Cyberpunk.
It does.
This is Pondsmith Cyberpunk. It's not, Gibson Cyberpunk. It's not, Ghost in the Shell Cyberpunk. It's definitely a subgenre of Cyberpunk, and to me, it definitely
100% Gibson or 100% Pondsmith's world. You are absolutely right, and it's such a thrill seeing his name at the start of the credits in great big letters.
Exactly.
Like, holy dream come true. I didn't mean to step on your toes there.
No worries.
I got excited.
I know, and I think I talked throughout our whole discussion of the critiques I had, whether it was, the absurdity of Maine's bulkiness and a little bit of the anime. And again, you gotta take anime with the reality. Now, is the next step for CDPR to do a live action, right?
It depends on how they do it. If it's as over the top as that, like if they try to turn it into like a Fast and the Furious type thing where it's just ridiculous and like, oh yeah, that muscle car is dragging that 5-ton safe at 50 miles down the road and like sliming it through buildings without losing any speed. Yeah. Or like, no, I don't want to see that. A live action that was more grounded in reality. Yeah, I would very much like to see that. Although honestly, I just want more of the anime.
Yeah. So the next question, and we're kind of over time. And again, for those who've never heard our podcast, I don't know what this is called.
This is a podcast.
Well, you don't see our names, but you see a little bit of what little animation or
Sure,
visuals
but I mean,
I do. Yeah, it's more of a podcast because our faces were not built for a video. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so the question becomes, is there going to be a season 2?
I mean, if there won't be a sequel to that. That's
right.
guaranteed.
So there's definitely not going to be a sequel to that. Is it going? But is there going to be a sequel? Rotten Tomatoes has 100%. IMDb has an 8.6. So
it's the screen show on. I mean, it's a massive success. I would very much like to see a season 2. I'm hoping it makes it. Unfortunately, Netflix has a really rotten track record with giving us more of the shows I truly love. I mean, Cowboy Bebop only one season.
So Cowboy Bebop didn't have the numbers that Edgerunners does. And I think at the end with Ed, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to watch more if that's Ed.
I did. I just wanted.
I didn't. I was like, they could have done a little better with it.
Same amount of episodes as the anime got. Like that's all I wanted. Just I know the story can't go forever, but yeah give us the same.
Well,
amount of
but Edgerunners can, right? It can go into a different story, and it's similar to what Dark Horse is doing, right? I mean, they got 4 or 5 different stories that are not even related to each other.
No,
and granted, there are only 4 issues. I'm like, I want more than 4 issues.
There are still endless stories to tell in Night City. It is the city of dreams.
It definitely is. So we're about 7 minutes over than when we're normally. But I think this was a great episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed our feedback on how we thought about Edgerunners. I don't know if we'll do another episode on like deep diving in every single episode of Edgerunners. That's always a possibility. And
I mean, we've still got to do the review of Solo of Fortune. That's on the schedule. That was supposed to be today, but Edgerunners.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it has to.
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah, so leave comments, whether it's in the YouTube or apparently we have a podcast streaming that I need to sync with Rob and trying to get any feedback that might could be coming with the podcast. But, come to us on Cyber Nation Uncensored's Discord. We have our own channel there. If you want to see us to go into a deep dive on every single episode, we will do that.
Questions?
Definitely will do that.
Suggestions?
Yep.
We won't bring any of it.
So though we skipped the book review this month, I also have lined up, we're going to have an interview with Jay Gray coming up. I think it's November.
That?
The first week of November, we're going to do that with him. So October 1st, we'll figure out what we're going to do. So the October 1st, the next October, we'll do Solo of Fortune 2 and cover that book. See what we can do for our next episode. We definitely have some people we're still trying to contact and rope in, specifically some old school guys that we want to like get on the chat and just shoot the shit of old stuff.
Yeah, old school 2020 webmasters. Yeah. Like some of the authors and other professionals who work in an official capacity on some of the original 2020 source books. We're trying to get some of that some of that lined up for you guys.
Yep. And again, if you guys have any specific topics you want to talk to us about, or get some of our insights, by all means do it. Check out our old episodes over on YouTube. This is 32. Wow.
Oh, holy crap! Where's the time gone?
No shit.
Yeah, check out YouTube on the Cybernation Uncensored channel.
I think we're almost up to our year anniversary. I got a
2-year anniversary.
Well, 2 years, yeah.
Because we already had our first year and then took a slight hiatus and then have come back for more.
Yeah, so.
Wow, we're fucking right along.
Yeah,
if we already mentioned that you can get a hold of us on the Cybernation Uncensored Discord. You can also get a hold of me on Facebook through either personally, because I'm always keen to talk to people, or you can get a hold of me on the Datafortress2020 Facebook group or the Cyberpunk 2020 Facebook group. Yep. I maintain a presence as a mod on both of those.
And also check out his site at Datafortress2020.com.
Check out his site at Cybersmily's.
.net.
.net. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was .org or .net. I'm always horrible.
.net, man, because we're in the net.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, that should just be.
And we have email links there. Also, I know Wisdom over here takes care of Facebook, and I don't know if you're on Instagram. 2 platforms.
I'm
good
at all. Not even a little bit.
Yeah, 2 platforms I kind of resisted. I
kind of lurk and snipe post every now and then on Reddit, but I'm not much of a presence there.
Reddit, I definitely check out Cyberpunk 2020 and Cyberpunk Red. I have a presence. I also have a Cybersmily Datafort and Reddit. I know it's not too much, and I really don't post too much because I don't see too much traffic there, so it's kind of one of those things like, is there much attention there? Am I going to pay much attention? I don't know. But I'm on quite a few Discord servers. Not only our Talsorians, Cyberpunk Unnations, but there's a lot of Cyberpunk Red and 2020 servers out there that run games that I'm also part of. I'm more of a lurker than an actual player. And also I have my own Discord channel specifically for my site where you can post bugs, enhancements you'd like to see on my site, and also some general comments and other things. But don't want to distract against Cyberpunk Nation's Uncensored channel, because you can always be part of many communities, and it's always a good thing to have a bunch of friends.
As always, we would very much like to thank Cybernation Uncensored for hosting us. Thanks, Rob.
Yep, Rob Mulligan is the champ. And I have to always recommend, and granted, it's not on Cybernation Uncensored. It's actually on Sirenscape, but he runs an awesome game with an awesome crew over on Sirenscape every Thursday night. You definitely want to check out. It's definitely worth watching for a live play, in my opinion. Anything else?
Yeah. No, I think that about covers it. We said our piece on the show. Yeah, we gave our thanks. I think that's what we came to say tonight.
Awesome. All right, guys and ladies. Hopefully we'll check you out on a future episode. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for showing up.